joined. It's in poor little Australia, and we'll get into it fairly quickly. It's a fairly stock standard storyline. It involves a bloke out of uni, or out of college I should say, got through the system quite quickly, built on the back of 2,000 chargeable hours a year in a time billing model, got to partnership in under 6 years out of college, building a very growing practice. But building it in a practice that was a little bit different, had all the trappings that you get when you're making that sort of money and building that sort of client base, but had a few things that were a bit different from day one. The first thing was that we were a bit rock and roll. What we were doing in a large corporate firm was that we were doing estate planning. We were doing work for individuals. We were the only firm that was actually doing it. We were doing tax planning. We were doing asset protection. We worked for high net wealth individuals before anyone had even heard of the term. So we were a little bit rock and roll from day one. The second one thing was that we were a law firm, but we didn't have any clients. We didn't have any clients. What we had was referral sources. Over 95% of our business was coming from accounting firms, from financial advisors, from risk advisors, from other lawyers. Okay, so we're a little bit different from day one. And all the way through, we were built on the back of actually just making them good. We didn't really have a business model. All we were about was trying to make our referral sources look good. And it worked like an absolute dream. And from the outside looking in, you would think it was just absolutely magic. The problem was that some of the people at the core of this business, inside of a partnership of 48 people, 400 people, we were just a little bit different. We had some names in our mind that were just a little bit cutting edge and weren't always there. The obvious ones were there, the Bakers were there, the exemplars were there. But there were some other people that were just putting a few questions into our mind that were making us think a little bit differently. So while we thought that we were doing things right, we started to change things. The first thing was, no more of this 2,000 chargeable hours. That's broken. That wasn't going to work. We had to find a different way. We started out with fixed pricing. We moved forward from that. We've been learning value pricing on the way through. We felt, like we've heard before, felt we were on an iceberg, but we felt that iceberg might well be melting. We didn't know why. We couldn't put our finger on it, but it just didn't feel quite right. And so what happened was we weren't just melting. It was actually broken. The whole thing was broken because what had been the backbone of our business was referrals. And while we were getting the really high-end work, we were actually missing out on some of the low-end work that had been the backbone of what we had built over a number of years. And what that meant was a number of different things. So when the global financial crisis hit, or the GFC as we call it down under, what that actually opened up for us was obviously many problems, but it actually opened up one really huge opportunity, and that was time. There's an irony in that. That was time. It gave us the space to actually think about what we were doing, to ask about what our why was, and actually have a really close look at what we were doing. And what it gave us the opportunity to do was look at a whole lot of connecting events, and I think I've listed them out. There's about 75 connecting events that brought us to building our startup. The three biggest ones were this. The first one was that our referral sources, who had traditionally loved using us because we make them look good, said it's actually hard to deal with you. It's actually hard to deal with you, and that actually went to the core of what we were worried about. The other two things were, firstly, while they felt that in the bespoke stuff, in the high-end stuff, we were absolutely A grade, they didn't see us like that anymore across the rest of their client base. So what did they start doing? They started referring work to other law firms. So that meant two things for us. Firstly, we had been pigeonholed into the very top end, which was great in the top end, and we were making a lot of money. But we were letting other advisors build relationships with our referral sources, and over time they started sending the really good work to those other referral sources, because that's what you do with someone that you trust. The second thing, and the more telling thing for our business, was all of that work that was training up our young people and locking them into our culture just wasn't coming anymore. And we had this huge gap. We had, great couple of partners, but we had no one else coming through the system. And what we had to do is we had to ask ourselves, well, what was really our why? Was it as simple as making our referral sources look good, or was it something deeper than that? And what it was something a lot deeper. And the answer was empowerment. We were actually about empowering our referral source to be the best that they possibly could, and about empowering our people to be as best as they possibly could. And what that meant was that we actually had to go back to the beginning of our business model. We still wanted to do the high-end work, but we had to have some other way to be across our distribution channel at every step of that business channel. And what we found was that, yes, it was hard, and we had to actually unbundle the legal advice, particularly in the estate planning piece. When you actually look at estate planning, there is very little that the lawyer actually has to do. And that's a very confronting topic for a law firm who have held themselves out as being at the absolute centrepiece. Now, I'm going to very quickly use some charts. I'm hesitant because you have all seen this chart, to use a chart. What we found, if you look at that standard model where you're worried about your cost of production, your price and value, in our business that had become very, very confined and we were very, very close together. What we actually needed to do was create something like that with a line there and actually bring our cost of production right down. And what was the answer? The answer was something like this. I'm happy to send this slide around afterwards. We completely smashed the business model. We went for blue oceans. We went to, on the two ends in terms of quality, we kept the quality at the bespoke, but we took the price down to basically online providers. And then everywhere in between, we just tried to game change at every single thing. We took everything below what was currently being done. And then we added some other things, like lawyers available 7 days a week, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. nationwide, even though we've only got one little office in the middle of Brisbane. What did we build? Well, we built a entirely virtual law firm. It's called eLawyer. Its motto and its why is empowering the advisors. And where are we? We're hoping we're getting close to the tipping point.